Read by Dale Grothman. Murph, Forsythe, and Jameson heard the alien voice warn them. And to each it sounded familiar. A sweetheart, a son, a hated enemy. Leave, Earthmen, or Die, by John Massie Davis. In a dwindling spiral, they circled the planet, and Murph's cold blue eyes studied the radar screen. Things looked good. No sign of cities, social denizens, or humanoids. He was scribbling notes on his desk when the all-wave above him started crackling. He watched the green line sweep back and forth along the dial, finally centering on the wavelength which was broadcasting. As it focused, the speaker sputtered in. In accordance with the interstellar code, it sounded like a recording. We repeat. Landings and colonization efforts have been previously attempted on this planet. They are not welcome and have not been successful. Change course and seek other areas. This warning is being broadcast upon wavelengths available to you and in language translatable by you in accordance with interstellar code. Murphy switched it off and looked at his crew of two. Well? Forsythe grinned at him. The hell with them. We've heard that from every race in the solar system, one way or another. I say we land. Jameson shrugged. Put her down somewhere. Makes no difference to me. His scarred lips tightened. Okay. Murph switched the set back on. The same recording was playing monotonously. Load up the combat equipment, boys. We're going in. The deadly silver needle tightened a spiral course around the planet, and above Murph the speaker crackled again and went dead. Guess they got tired of playing that recording, he muttered. Another crackling, and the mechanism blared again. We see that you intend disregarding our warning. In accordance with the interstellar code, it is only fair to warn you. It clicked off abruptly as Murph jabbed at the switch. No use listening to this outworld nonsense. He'd heard it all before and lived through it. Where's the rest of the fleet? He threw the question out generally. 9 hours behind us, Jameson said. We blast in. They follow us. The three men were silent as they scanned the radar screen. They whined above a landmass, and Murph juggled the controls, and the ship swooped upward, then settled slowly, riding on the jets. While they waited for the ground around them to cool, the men climbed into combat gear. The radar scanned the military hemisphere available, and Murph casually flipped the radio switch again. Have disregarded our warning, the voice said insistently. In accordance with interstellar code, we cannot now be further responsible. It croaked into silence as Murph slammed the switch closed again. Nuts, he said, buckling the belt around his waist. Yeah, said Jameson. The hell with them, whoever they are. Well, said Forsythe, he was the navigator, now I'm not so sure. Get dressed. Murph was in command, and he showed it. We're going out. There was an oddity about the voice, Murph thought as he dressed. The voice reminded him of his sweetheart, Citra, back in Philly on Earth. Husky, throaty, with a soft, vibrant purr of a happy kitten. It reminded Forsythe of his son's tones during the family farewell for this expedition. A twinge of concern tautened his body as he remembered. One never knew when, or if, crews returned from these grim expansion campaigns of humanity. Jameson had another impression. He remembered his days as a professional fighter and that last rough brawl when he hadn't quite made champion. It still rankled. The voice was that of his opponent in the 7th round, just when Jameson's knees started to buckle. The sly, calculating insults in the cliches, intended to make him lose his head. They had accomplished their purpose. He had charged in slugging when he should have hung on, or run backward until his wind returned. From then on, he became a has-been, working steadily downward until the manpower needs of humanity had offered an opportunity to pick another career. His scarred lips, remembering, were a tight line, and his eyes cold and uncompromising. They'd finished dressing. Murph flipped on the radio again, grinning in contempt. The voice still vibrated through the ether. That you blast off immediately or assume the responsibilities for the consequences. Interstellar Code states that invaded people are justified in using any tactics. It clicked off. Murph had been annoyed by the resemblance to Citra's voice. Perhaps he was homesick. Jameson's lips vanished into a white line, and Forsythe looked around, rabbit-eyed with astonishment, expecting to see his son emerge from the piles of supplies and equipment. Self-conscious, none of them said anything. "Okay," said Murph. "Out we go." The precision door swung open quietly, and the three descended to the still smoking ground. Each set up his rapid-fire electro gun, covering the entrance, and then they sat back, waiting. Nothing happened, and Murph broke the tense silence. "Turn on the radio." He looked at Forsythe. "We can hear it from here. I'll man both guns." Forsythe grunted and vanished into the ship. Murph heard the crackle of the equipment warming up, and listened to the voice of Citra. Oddly enough, Jameson tensed as he heard the voice of the present champion, and Forsythe nearly cried as his son's tones came through the metallic speaker. But all the voices said the same thing. Subject to unprincipled attack to resist invasion of our homeland. This is the last time this warning will be broadcast. The receiver clicked, then dropped into a monotonous hum of a radio on an unused but still alert wavelength. From over a slight rise a mile off, a figure approached the ship. Murph blinked, doubting his senses, confused. Then his roar broke the silence of the strange world. "Citra!" Just one word, but that's all he could do. She looked as she had when he'd left on this expedition, when they had said goodbye. Sparkling with sequins in her dressing room, undulating with feathers in the right places, she walked toward him with the feline grace he'd learned to love. "Citra!" he shouted again. Astonished, he deserted his position behind the gun and started running across the plain. Graceful, dainty, encountering difficulties because of her spiked heels on the rough terrain, she smiled bravely and hurried toward him. Forsythe saw the approaching figure too. He tensed with disbelief and surprise, and then his voice rose excitedly. "Jimmy! Jimmy!" What was his boy doing here? Reason faded as he watched his 9-year-old son stumble toward the ship. He unfastened his harness and slipped from behind the gun. His boy on an alien planet, confronting unknown dangers? He must get to him. Get him back to the ship and the little ring of certainty behind the guns. Forsythe started across the level space, grateful that the towering hulk of Murph had recognized his boy and would, on this unknown world, help bring the kid back to comparative safety. In 6 hours now, the fleet would be here. The boy would be sent home on one of the capital ships. Behind him, Jameson watched the two figures running away. His face froze into granite. Rage and resentment surged within him. Across the plain, he saw the man who had stolen, yes, stolen, the championship from him. The fighter loped toward him casually, sneering and confident. Jameson felt a surge like an electric shock across his shoulders. His teeth ground together, and he could hear their roaring within his ears. Deliberately, he moved from his gun, started at a fighter's dog trot toward his opponent. It occurred to him that Murph and Forsythe would beat him there. He was glad they were willing to help, but for the sake of his own integrity, he considered this his fight. Jameson ran swiftly then. He passed Forsythe and Murph, determined to be the first to reach the one man he hated. He sprinted eagerly, sucking the strange air chemicals of this world into his lungs. He was short of breath. Behind him, he heard the heavy thudding of Murph, plunging and plowing toward him, and, in addition, the light but rapid steps of Forsythe. By now, he didn't care. He was confronting his opponent. Dropping into a crouch, Jameson moved in, feet wide, tense. There would be no mistake, no error this time. His fists lashed out, and his opponent fell on the strange and powdery dust of a strange world, millions of miles from their first fight. The man started struggling up, and again flat-footed, tense, fists like clutched sledgehammers, Jameson dove at him. And then it happened. Murph hit Jameson from the side. Raw and choking with rage, Murph clubbed, groped, kicked, fouled, until the ex-fighter fell in the pale and strange dust. Murph's voice was hoarse and shaking. "Hit my woman, will you?" he screamed in rage. Jameson tried to rally, but each time he moved, Murph's fist slammed against his face and head. There was a final crash as the back of his head struck against the rocks on the ground. Jameson lay in the dust of an alien planet, and from behind his right eye, gray and reddish matter oozed. He didn't move. Murph stood up. He looked again at Citra. He was choked and tired, standing there, and as he gasped for breath, Forsythe ran by him, ran up to her. Angrily he watched. Forsythe running up to his woman. What was wrong with these men? Murph saw Forsythe put his arms around Citra and say meaninglessly to Murph, "Jimmy! Jimmy!" Again a red rage filled Murph. He dove forward, smashing into Forsythe, and the navigator reeled backward. As he fell back, his feet tangled in the scrubby vegetation of the planet. He reached toward his belt, and his electrogun jerked free from the holster. He saw the bull shape of Murphy over him, an enraged beast, and as he fell, the twin electrodes shot out an energy stream. Fear and hatred tensed his nerves, but despite the emotion, he set the range right. The sparks arced together just in front of the great bulk of Murph. There was a crackling and the smell of burnt flesh, then a surprised look upon Murph's face. The surprise turned to rage, and the last thing Forsythe saw was Murph falling down on him. His clothes and his chest burned away until the ribs showed, animal rage welling from his lips. A figure stood 50 feet away and watched this drama. Murph, blood coughing from his mouth and nose, the great muscles of his chest nothing but crisp burnt meat, reached for Forsythe, picked him up, holding him over his head as an ape would a man, and slammed him again and again to the ground. The final time Murph tried to lift Forsythe, his strength gave out. He dropped Forsythe's limp form, coughed in a final paroxysm, and fell beside Forsythe and Jameson. The figure which stood 50 feet away turned and walked leisurely back over the rise. Now, it was not a fighter, and it was not Jimmy, and it was not Citra. It was a denizen of the planet, and it looked like no human. Shortly thereafter, the all-wave radio and the deadly powerful silver needle standing serenely on the strange world blared again. In accordance with interstellar code, we have asked that we not be invaded, and are warning you that according to Article 19, Section 3, fleets which invade a peaceful people become subject to unprincipled attack, even to the use of psychological weapons. 5 hours away, the main fleet streaked toward the planet. The admiral looked at the tape reports from the scout ship and at transcripts of the recorded warnings. "Nuts," he said. "We go in." He felt an odd, intuitive twinge. The voice was so much like his mother's, and she hadn't been well when he'd last seen her. Besides him, the radio man busily, tensely, sent out landing instructions. He felt irritable. The voice had sounded like Peggy, that no-good cheating. He shrugged. Just imagination. In a diminishing spiral, the fleet swung around the planet while the admiral scanned the screen for a free landing site. The end of Leave, Earthmen, or Die by John Massie Davis.